Hey everyone, welcome to TV Recap. I'm Lance and this is the Westworld recap for Season 1, Episode 2, titled Chestnut. Now last week's recap was a full story and character breakdown since this was a brand new show, but starting with this video and moving forward, I'm going to focus more on the main plot points and my theories on where this show is going. I'll do my best to keep everyone up to speed with the overlay for these videos, so please note that I am going into spoiler territory for this episode and all of the previous episodes. Okay, so after these first two episodes, I feel like we can divide the story of Westworld up into four main plot points. We have the corporate shakeup that appears to be underway, Ford's new storyline that seems to be much bigger than anything the park's ever seen before, the Man in Black's quest to unlock the secrets of the game, and the hosts beginning to gain sentience and think for themselves. Now before I get into the actual specifics of these plots, I want to also have talk about the sort of tie-in branch that might interweave all of these stories together with the new guest perspective of William. I think after last week, everyone wanted to see how guests get into the park, and the show didn't waste any time getting to that. Now I know the whole white hat versus black hat shot was just a little too on the nose, but I still loved it. I think that's the kind of scene that makes everyone watching the show question what they would do if they were in the character's shoes. Now moving on to the core stories, let's start with the corporate shakeup. Now we got the first taste of this last week and we got a little more background information about it this week. Now we know that there's a company board overseeing the operations and presumably the profits of the company. They're encouraging new material for the park, and we have the beginning of the idea that Ford might be on his way out, though not by his choice. Now there wasn't a lot of meat to this plot this week, and I feel like this storyline might fall by the wayside depending on how the second main plot point with Ford's storyline plays out in the coming weeks. Now speaking of Ford's storyline, we got a few big pieces to dissect this week, but not a lot of concrete evidence. Now first we saw Ford walking in the park with a young boy, who turns out is a host, and based on Ford's conversation with the boy, I think it's actually safe to assume that the boy host is a copy of Ford as a child. Now it's hard to say exactly why Ford would create a replica of himself as a boy to talk and teach, but I got a sense that Ford teaching and educating himself could serve as his first attempt at redemption for whatever he thinks he needs to be redeemed for. The other piece of this puzzle came at the end of the episode, where we see Ford walking with Bernard to the centerpiece of his new storyline, which happens to be a church steeple. Now, I can't even begin to unpack all of the religious allegory implications that this might have for the story moving forward, but I feel like we're going to see a collision between Ford's redemption and his God complex as the creator of this park and hosts. Now moving on to the meatier plotlines of the show, let's talk about the Man in Black. This week we see the Man in Black continue his search for the end game of Westworld. His search takes him to the site of a lynching, gives him an amazingly badass line about a grave being a tight fit for all of the sheriff's deputies, and sees him drag the now not lynched host to the host's hometown, made up to look like a Mexican border town. Now during his conversation with the host, we get a real sense of how long the Man in Black has been at this, provided by his familiarity with the world down to knowing exactly how many bullets he needs for a firefight. We also got what I consider proof that the Man in Black is actually a guest, with the head of security confirming that he is a guest that gets whatever he wants. Ultimately, the Man in Black beats the scenario and finds out from one of the hosts that the maze he is looking for is not meant for him. Now, I'm inclined to think that this means the maze is actually meant for the hosts, which implies that Ford always meant for the host to become more self-aware. Now, wrapping up with the host, I think we got just as much advancement to this plot as we did to the Man in Black story. We now know that the words, "these violent delights have violent ends," acts as some sort of trigger phase for the hosts, as Maeve didn't remember her former lives until Dolores says that to her. We also see that Bernard has been meeting with Dolores in secret, having Dolores wipe the meetings from her memories, and then he even draws her to a buried gun. Now, I have no idea what that actually means, but I'm still not counting Bernarda as a host that has already developed self-awareness. Now, the most heart-wrenching scene in this episode is easily when Maeve wakes herself up while she's being rebuilt. Now, I think it's important to note that the hosts don't lose their personalities during these awake events, and could be trouble for the park once the hosts start to remember these events as well. It's also important to note that we see Teddy get killed for a third time in 2 episodes, and we even see him in the body processing cube, for lack of a better term. I'm definitely expecting him to become some sort of a leader figure in the coming host revolt. Okay, those are my thoughts on Season 1, Episode 2 of Westworld. Now, I'm sure in my quest to edit all of this down to a manageable length, I've missed something important. So, if you spotted something I missed, please let me know in the comments below, and also let me know how you feel about Westworld 2 episodes in. Now, to make sure that you don't miss any of my Westworld recaps or any of my other videos, please subscribe to my channel by clicking the button next to the video on whatever device you're watching on. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week for some more Westworld dissection. Bye.